This is Still Here, Still Queer Now What, your companion to queer midlife. I'm Dr. Paul Taylor-Pitt, the author of Still Here, Still Queer Now What, the book, coming everywhere 21st of October. Welcome back to another episode with a very special guest. I've had such joy from knowing my guest today. And yet I discovered both in thinking about this conversation and during it that we haven't really given ourselves much time to talk. My guest today is Saba Ali, who many of you in the community will know from the incredible work that Saba does with us and for us. As you'll find out in the conversation, Saba is currently the chair of the Coalition to End Conversion Practices and is also continuing doing amazing work around police accountability in queer spaces. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, there's so much that Saba does. And Saba and I usually bump into each other in like a work situation, whether it's an event or a speaking gig or a conference. And we always have such a lovely time together. And yet I realized we've never really just sat down and talked. And so I was very happy to have space with Saba just talking about all of this fantastic work and a little bit about what makes Saba. So I'm very excited to be able to just give you the space to sit back, enjoy, and meet Saba Ali. How would you want people to meet you today, Saba?
Hello, Paul. Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
How would I want people to meet me today? I think today I'm feeling soft.
Hmm.
Oh, I've got a tear running down my face. It's interesting. What a way to start. Tearful, but not unhappy or sad. Yeah, I think just soft. I am an activist and a public speaker by nature. I used to say when I was younger that God gave me a voice, so I use it. Or I used to say actually that He gave me a gob. But then a few people said that it's probably better to say voice, Saba, which tells you a lot about me. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, I'm kind of, do you know, I think the older I'm getting, the more detached I am from labels and titles, and I really don't particularly care for them. So yeah, today I'm soft.
What's soft like?
Taking care of me. So I'm starting off this week with ease. I've got things I need to do, but I don't feel pressure to do them. I've had a bit of a kind of, in the last couple of months, I've had quite a big life change in that I've let go of a couple of big things in my life and I've simplified my life quite a lot and I've gone back to grassroots activism, which is what I love, being community focused rather than people focused. And I think that's what I want to do. Years ago, someone said to me, probably about 10 plus years ago, someone said to me about this work is like they do it for the cause, not the applause. And I think I was not getting into a situation, but I could feel that I wasn't doing work the way I wanted to do it. And I wasn't getting the answers that I wanted to get. And I also realized that I was probably doing too much. I've also since last summer been really ill, quite seriously in some ways, sort of in and out of, I think I've been at the doctor's or hospital at least once a month, every month. It's become a bit of a joke. So I've made a choice to slow down. I've made a choice to let go of things that no longer serve me. I don't feel the need for them. Not because there's necessarily anything wrong with them, but I think I've got to do what, what works for me. And I've got to put myself first. I've got to put my health first. And I really want to put my community work first. So I've chosen like 2 topics and my sole focus is on those. And that's where all my work is going to be focused for the rest of this year anyway.
And what are they?
So I'm chair for the Bank Conversion Practices Coalition. A lot of my focus is going to be on that. There's lots of things happening around that, and I don't want to talk about my frustration. I think you can read those on social media. You just need to kind of listen to my posts or read my posts on Instagram or LinkedIn to know what my feelings are there. But I'm determined to see this through. So my focus is really to push for this ban to be published. It's a draft bill, but really, really push to get this published. I think it's a disservice that it's been 8 years, 4 monarch speeches, and it's not happened. And, in the last King's speech, I had 3 or 4 people message me really excited that the King's mentioned it's going to happen. And I'm like, yeah, the King mentioned exactly the same words last year. I mean, I didn't say it to them, but in my head, I was thinking, the King said exactly the same words last year. The Queen said the same words exactly the year before and the year before that. And yeah. So I'm determined to get that scene through because I speak to a lot of survivors. Since I've been in the role as chair or even as interim chair, I was having people coming forward and speaking to me, people wanting to share their story, people wanting to talk about their experience, their journey. And I didn't realize the gravity of how much it was still happening, how prevalent it still is. And it's not that it scared me, but it really saddened me that this abuse is still happening in 2026. This is like a basic human right that people should not be suffering with. This is abuse, in simple terms. So a lot of my focus is on that, kind of championing that, putting my weight behind that, making sure we've got strategy in place, making sure we know what we're doing in that sphere, and just, kind of getting my head around all the different policy, all the different legislation, all the different work that needs to be done. I've got to say, I'm incredibly grateful to the amazing strategy group that we have on the coalition who make my job really easy. I'm not an academic. I hate academia. I'm not a policy person. I do not do legislation. I mean, I do, but not to the level that they do. They are absolutely brilliant, and they've just really stepped up. And, I can call on certain individuals who are so patient and good with me and kind to me. And I'm like, look, just explain it like you're explaining it to a child. And they're just so lovely, the way they speak to me and are kind to me. My strength is walking into a room and telling people what needs to be done. I'm not afraid to ask. We're going to be interrupted by a cat. I'm going to try
No,
and get this cat out the way. Oh my God, the cat's about to put its foot in my coffee. Yeah.
the cat. Very right. What's the cat's name?
The cat is Prince.
Prince.
Yes. He is named after Prince, the singer. He's going to be 14 in August. So yeah, he's an old boy.
He's a teenager.
He,
So tell me the second thing that you're working on, and then
So the second thing is police accountability for our community, marginalised folk.
Mhm.
Because along with survivors, I've been working with sort of police and accountability for about nearly sort of 4 or 5 years now. And when it comes to the LGBT plus community, just don't have any support. The amount of people that have, don't understand the system. Okay, I think my cat might be sick in a moment.
Hear him in the background. Oh, is he
Can you
okay?
hear that? Oh gosh. Okay, that's fine. No problem. We'll
Tend
carry
to
on.
him if he needs you. Like, that's more important.
No, he's fine. He's done a little. Sorry, you might have to edit this bit out.
It reminds me of when we had a cat. We would wake up in the middle of the night to that sound. It's quite it's so unique.
It is, yeah. That's all right.
Was he
Hi.
okay?
Yeah. Yeah, he'll be absolutely fine. They do that, don't they? Right. So the other bit of work is the police accountability, which is standing up for LGBT rights when it comes to policing, because we've had hate crime incidents removed. They're bringing in more and more live facial recognition, which is an issue for our community, because if you're not out, if you're, if you want, if you're a refugee, if you're an asylum seeker, there's so many different reasons why facial recognition doesn't work for our community in terms of risk. But also 80% of according to Gallup, 80% of our community do not report hate crimes. And that's a real problem when it comes to domestic abuse, sexual abuse. A lot of that isn't reported. When it is reported, it's misunderstood. When the trans community report hate crime, there's quite often they're either misgendered, they're misunderstood. So there's a lot of work in terms of policing that need to better understand our community. There's a real fracture there, and we've seen with, like, obviously all the change of laws, all the stuff that's coming in, there is some correlation between that, but the police fracture is, to me, it's huge. And in the years that I've been working, trying to build that bridge and trying to sort of get the police to better understand our community, I've seen them get worse rather than better. So that's an area that I've always done, like, violence against women and girls anyway, because that's my lived experience. So that kind of is an area that I will always work in, but I just want to apply a bit more time and effort in that area, because I get more people coming to me. And I think there's that, sort of dovetails a little bit with conversion practices as well.
I've been so looking forward to this conversation, and you've just proved me utterly right, because I feel like in 10 minutes, you've offered a million things that I now want to talk about. I've had to really resist interrupting, because what I've loved is this feeling of excitement that's been building and building and building as you've been talking, because you started talking about showing up soft, which I just think is such a beautiful thing to think about. There was even I was thinking about like a single Sinead O'Connor tear, which wanted to be acknowledged. And then you talked about letting go of stuff, which I think is a huge I want to say underappreciated thing that I know I don't do enough of. You talked about this focus on these two things, banning conversion practices and police accountability, which in themselves are both huge. There's the changes in your health that's been happening in the last year and the impact of that. There's already, within 10 minutes, there's so many things. So thank you for that. And that, I knew I was excited to see you, because when we see each other, it's usually in a work-related situation where we're doing something, or we're at an event and we're like, hi and goodbye. I thought, the opportunity to have an hour just to talk about you is so exciting to me. And so from all of those things, is there something that you would like to talk more about, or is it something else?
Oh my goodness. What would I like to talk about? Do you know, I never get asked that question. I never get asked that question. What would you like to talk about?
Mm,
Absolutely no idea. I mean, I talk all the time.
mm,
I think for me, one of the things that's come up a lot at the moment, and I talk a lot about, is education and awareness. I guess with both these roles, there's a big piece of, people understanding, what's going on, if you scratch the surface, what's really going on, and how do we educate people to understand the truth rather than the misinformation, all the scaremongering and all the rubbish that's out there. So that's one of the things that I do through my work, is to kind of, share truth and facts, amplifying other people's voices. And that to me is really important. So in my work with both things, the policing and conversion practices, wherever I have an opportunity, I'll always bring other people along, so their voice is heard. With conversion practices, we always amplify survivors' voices, and it includes survivor stories, because it's really important. It's easy to talk about the kind of, like, legislative side of things and what we want in, the bill, for example. But it's when you listen to a survivor and you understand what they've gone through, you really understand why this needs to stop, and the lunacy that it still hasn't. And with the policing side of it, again, when you bring a survivor into that, and policing or institutions get to hear, true stories, lived experience, it makes such a difference. For me, that lived experience is really important. And I think, I was going to say, in some ways, I'm lucky that I have my own lived experience. I don't know if it's lucky, but I think on both accounts, because my lived experience is childhood trauma and cultural abuse, which I'm very comfortable talking about now, it's meant that I recognize and understand what people are going through. Everybody's journey is their own. So I could never say I understand exactly what you're going through. That would be wrong, and I think, one of the things that I've learned quite quickly is that you've got to kind of keep ego out of this work. You don't do the work because you want to be seen or recognized for it. You do the work because you want to help people. So
To me, though, that feels quite hard because part of doing the work is your visibility, or certainly that's what I really appreciate, is that you are visible. You're out there, you're seen, you are heard, you have a voice, you're doing this. And so I don't know that it would be as effective if you were doing it from behind the scene. Like you literally become the face of something and the voice of something.
Mm.
Does that bring, so is there a tension in that? Like that feeling of actually I need to be seen, but also it's not about me. Like how do you manage the contradiction of it?
Yeah, I think what I probably mean by that is that it's not all about me.
Mm,
So it's like every meeting I have with a minister, I will take someone along with me.
mm,
I'll always share space. Like I think every meeting I have had actually with like the Minister of Equalities, we've had like a few now. I'll always bring like a couple of people from our
mm,
strategic group from the coalition. I don't just kind of go off and do things. Even when I'm doing like press stuff, I'll run stuff by the comms, Phoebe who looks after our comms, or, I'll run stuff through the strategy group and say, look, I'm thinking of saying this. If I'm second guessing myself, I'll always double check. Or if I'm doing, so I think that's what I mean,
yeah.
is that it's not, just about, oh, I'm here, I'm taking advantage of everything that comes my way and, look at me, here I am.
Yeah. It's not self-serving.
No, not at all. And any opportunity that comes my way, I'm always really grateful. And it's like, like we saw each other on Friday at Pride Wide. I was really grateful to Scotland Trust to have the opportunity to talk about conversion practices. And it was about amplifying what conversion practices are. It wasn't about me and the work that I'm doing. So I think that's what I mean, is the difference between saying I've done this and I've achieved that. I could reel off a whole list of things, but that's not who I am.
For aspiring activists, people who want to make a big change, and I feel like I'm working out this question as I'm thinking about it because you're giving me a really interesting opportunity to explore something I would never have thought of. Because when I think about the work you're doing with the coalition, banning conversion practices, that's a life-changing, country-changing initiative. And yet the picture I also have now that you've talked about it is you going into a meeting with a minister, which in some ways is quite a boring, like going to a meeting is quite a boring thing. Talk me through the detail, like the miniature detail of what it's like. Like, where do you meet and what's the room like and who shows up and how does the agenda get? Like, what happens in those meetings that no one would ever ask about or no one would ever think?
So we've had a few meetings with Minister of Equalities. It's always been in their office.
And where's that?
So with Nia Griffith, it was in, oh my gosh, it was in her office. It's completely gone out of my head. With Olivia Bailey, MP, Minister Bailey. She's based in the Department of Health, Department of Education. So it's been in her office there.
And what's it
So
like? Is it fancy? Is it like a boring office?
there's
Like,
a
what does it
picture
look
of it on my Instagram where I
really?
stood next to her. Well, she asked to have the picture. I was like a
Yeah.
bit like, oh no. Just a normal office. I mean, they all have flags in them, don't they? Everyone's obsessed with
Okay.
flags.
What does it
Do
feel
you know
like when you
what?
walk into that space?
I think there's an element of respect because, this is a minister of parliament. It is someone that's invited you into their space, so they don't have to,
Mhm.
first and foremost. So I do have an element of respect. Whatever I think, I mean, I have a lot of opinions about parliament going in there, but also it's an opportunity that I relish because I can really speak on behalf of the community and I don't miss that opportunity. It's an opportunity not to be missed. So,
Is it a round table, a square table? Do you sit opposite a
it's
desk?
it's a long it's like a board table. So
Okay.
I think it's a mahogany table-ish, something like that. We sit around the table and I could actually got to give her dues. When we had our last meeting, she actually let us lead the meeting, which was incredible because normally MPs like to kind of lead and navigate and
Mm.
take charge of a meeting, but she was very open to us leading the meeting. Obviously, I'm not going to share what we discussed, But one of the things I did say to her was that, look, while we want to work in alignment with the government, because we both want the bill to be published, so we, whatever our differences are, we have to work together to get this through. So we'll do what we can as a coalition to help you get this bill passed. I said, but at the same time, I am answerable to my community. And if there are things that we're not happy about, I'm not going to shy away from saying those, which she completely understood. So I think having those really open, honest, frank conversations are great. So it's a good opportunity to have that. She knows that we're fully committed. It's great because every time we go and see her, our coalition has grown. We've got new organisations or NGOs that have come on board. We've got some amazing organisations within our coalition. We've got a real mixture. So it's lovely being able to say that.
Do you get offered coffee, biscuit?
We get offered water. Actually, we have been offered tea and coffee before. This time we were offered. Were we offered tea and coffee? It was such a short meeting. I think we were offered water. Yeah,
So a good mark
and
of
a
how much
photo
time you're going to
opportunity.
have.
Yeah,
If there's coffee on the table, you're going to be sitting for a while. If there's water, you're like in and out.
yeah, pretty much.
What
Yeah, coffee
prepares you?
takes too long, doesn't it?
What prepares you to be ready for those kind of conversations?
So normally, like I said, I always take a couple of people from the strategy group so that if there's any difficult legislative questions, I can go, how about you? What do you think? Well, what do you think? So what prepares me? I don't really need to prepare that much, if that makes sense. Like I know my subject matter, but we do meet beforehand. We just kind of go over like basic questions that we want asked. If there's anything specific that we want known to us, so these are the questions we want to ask. This is what we want, what our takeaways are really, I guess. So at the moment is like, is there a timescale? When do you think the bill will be published? And also, that we want it before the summer recess. So, putting our expectations down on the table as well.
What do you wear?
I, as I am, I don't get dressed up. It's quite funny. I've never worn a suit in my life. I'm not going to stop wearing a suit. Like the others, obviously, are working, so they always look kind of smart. I usually look like a bit of a semi-tramp. I normally rock up in some sort of, one of my slogan T-shirts, and as I am, what you say is what you get with me. I
You show
don't
up as you
change for, yeah, I do not change for any. I'm not going to change the way I dress for an MP. Put it that way.
think I've worked out why I'm so curious. And thank you for bearing with me as I ask seemingly pointless questions.
No, no.
What I think I've just worked out in my head is I'm making this real, making this human, because it's when I think about all this stuff that's gone on in my lifetime that I haven't directly been part of, whether it was, equalizing the age of consent or abolishing Section 28, bringing in equal marriage. There were things that I supported from the sidelines, but I've never been in a room with an MP talking about those things. And so I feel like they happen to me. And I don't think I've ever really appreciated that doesn't happen naturally. It happens when someone like you decides to take time from their life to show up to those meetings exactly as yourself, being prepared, being ready, and you make change happen. And I don't think I've appreciated that enough. And I know that you are doing it, but I've never really thought about actually, what does that mean when you're doing it? It means you're turning up to those meetings, sometimes not even getting a cup of coffee, and you're changing the world for people. And so for me, there's something about just humanizing it, like making it so real and so minute and boring and detailed, because that's the work. That's the hard work that goes into making change happen. For me, it's kind of easy to join a march and go out there and, think what sign I'm going to hold. That's the easy stuff. You're doing the hard stuff. And so, yeah, I just want to acknowledge that and celebrate that and say thank you for that, because it's you turning up to a meeting in the Department for Education and getting it done. And I want to feel like that's real. It's not that something that's happening to us. It's not something that's just miraculously changing. It's you doing it with your coalition, with the strategy group. So thank you. Like seriously, thank you, because you're doing this.
I've never really thought about it like that. I just kind of get on and do it. But yeah, no, thank you.
Exactly. You just get on and do it. Whereas actually you're doing it. You're making it happen for everyone. And you're doing it with the humility that you know that this isn't about you. You're doing it because it's
Mm.
important to you, for the community, with the community, but you're still the one that's doing it. You're still chairing that coalition, where someone like me isn't chairing the coalition. And that's how change happens. When I asked you about being prepared as well, I guess for me, there's another question, which is what prepared you for that role? Like, how did Saba end up doing that through your own experiences, through your own learning, through your own mistakes, through your own growth? What got you in that place in the first place?
So I joined the coalition, I think it was around 2022, and Jane Ozanne, who founded the coalition, I have to, sort of mention her because without her, there'd been a coalition. I sat on the coalition, and when she chose to retire from the coalition at the start of last year, she started sort of saying at the end of the previous year, and it's because she wanted to go into politics, and she was moving to Guernsey as well, and she knew that she couldn't do the two roles. Jane, she was honoured in the last Queen's Honours, and she's now the Deputy Mayor of Guernsey, so she wouldn't have been able to carry on as chair for the Conversion Practices Coalition. And I remember she called me up and she had a conversation with me, and she said, "I think you'd be great as the interim chair." And I was like, "You've got to be kidding me. Like, no way." And we had a couple of those conversations where I was like, "No way, I'm not doing it. I'm not interested at all." It was so far removed from what I wanted to do. And I just was like point blank refusal a few times. And we discussed it in the strategy group. And again, I was like, nope. And then on her I think it was her last meeting, she basically just said, she gave me all her reasons when we spoke together, why she thought I should be the person. And I just kept saying no. In her last meeting, she just said that I nominate Saba as the interim chair. And then a couple of other people were like, "Yeah, I think that's great," and seconded it. And so I became the interim chair. And I was like, oh my God. And I was adamant that, okay, I'll do it, but I'm doing it strictly as a chair would chair a meeting. I've chaired other meetings. I've sat as a trustee for like 10 years. And previous to that, I was a PA. So for about nearly 20 years, I've sat in board meetings. So I'm very aware of how you chair a meeting. That's the easy part. So I'd lay down very firm bullet points. This is what a chair does. This is what I'm going to do. And that's what I'm doing. So I did that and I started doing it, and I quite enjoyed it. And I don't know, just that, like, the role just evolved the more I did it and the longer I was doing it. And I obviously just invested a lot more time in it, and I kind of really grew to love the role. And then when we decided that we need to get permanent chair, we talked about all sorts. We talked about getting someone from the House of Lords, getting like a bishop, or getting someone else to be like the chair of the coalition. So we've had all sorts of conversations on who could take over the role, which I was all for. And then when we decided that actually, no, we've exhausted all those avenues, it's not going to, they're not going to work, we thought we'll put it out to the coalition for anyone to be. At which point I thought, well, do you know what? I've been doing it for nearly a year. I actually really enjoy it. It's crazy that I've taken the coalition so far, made all these changes, and we have changed a lot in the last year in terms of how we're functioning and how we're moving forward. And I thought I'd be crazy not to apply for it and just to kind of let someone take over what I've achieved in a year. And the fact that I just love the role, I absolutely love the role. I love working with the strategy group. I love all the individuals on it. I enjoy speaking to this. Well, actually, I don't really speak. I generally listen to the survivors and, the relationships I've built with the coalition members. So I applied for it, and I was very grateful that they kept me on as permanent chair. So, yeah, so it was a role that I was absolutely adamant, I do not want to do this. No, no, no. And, here we are.
Are there any other echoes in your life where that's also been the case? Where something presented itself to you and you've gone, not going to do that, and then you've ended up doing it?
Not so much in my life, but I am an Aquarius.
Right. Okay.
And I'm the kind of person where if you say you can't do this, I will go
Mm,
out of my way to prove you that I actually can. So it's not this role, or I've not really had anything like that where it's happened. You know, there might be situations where I've let go of things where people have been, I'm actually really surprised you did it because I never thought you would, you know, moved on or let go. I find it very easy to do that. So yeah, I think the opposite, you know, what I was saying, I'm very good at tell me not to do something and I'll prove you wrong.
yeah. Well, now I know how to get you to do anything. Maybe you've just given away the secret. That's it. We'll outwork. No one will ever know. Suddenly you'll start getting messages going, Saba, I bet you could never do this. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
54 and a quarter.
And what's that like?
Love it. I absolutely love it. Do you know, I also cannot wait till I'm 55.
Why?
I'm like, because I can cash in my pension. It's not huge, it's tiny, but I'm so excited that I'll have like this little pot of money. Which was ridiculous, isn't it? I love my age. Like, I think for me, so I mentioned that my lived experience of childhood abuse and cultural abuse, my mother was my perpetrator. And although the physical abuse stopped in my kind of early teens, the mental abuse and emotional abuse didn't really stop. I would say to my late 30s, early 40s when my mum passed away. And it lessened over time because obviously, well, not obviously because you don't know, but, you know, I left home when I was 22. I kind of got kicked out, actually. I was made homeless. So, you know, the less I saw my mum, the less abuse I got. But, you know, when I saw her, there was still, you know, she'd still make digs, she'd still make snipes, she'd still say things to me to undermine me. So really, it didn't stop until I was sort of in my early 40s. When she passed away, it was like just a massive release. Like, no one's ever going to say anything to me again, and no one will ever say anything to me again. I despise bullies, and I will always stand up to bullies. I think that's why I kind of probably partly do the work that well, I know it's why I do the work that I do, but I think it's also what kind of really spurs me on. Why I won't tolerate shit from anyone. I've had 40 years of it. I'm not putting up with it anymore. So you know, the older I've got, like now, I'm at that age where I just feel completely free, you know, completely set. You know, I've had about 30 years of therapy on and off. I had my first therapy session when I was 15, and I'm 54 now, so you can kind of do the math. You know, I still, you know, work through some of the sort of tools that I picked up along the way. I still look after my mental health as best as I can, although it's taken a bit of a wobble in the last 6 months. So the older I get, I really feel that I have just complete freedom to live unconditionally as myself. Nobody can say or do anything. And I love it. And I just feel it gives me license to be myself.
Are there stories about yourself that were never true, that you were told that you've had to throw away from your kind of internal life?
Yeah, I think, well, I initially didn't like my dad when I was younger, and I couldn't understand, like, when my mum used to abuse me, when my dad never did anything. And I hated my dad for years until I was about sort of 20, 21. And then I remember coming home one day and sort of confronting him. And we ended up having a conversation about why he never stepped in or never did anything. And he explained his side of the story, and I kind of realized that everything my mum had told me was lies about him. And you know, we kind of started making amends, but unfortunately, he sort of passed within a few years of that. So it's kind of bittersweet in the sense that, you know, just as I started getting to know my dad, he passed away. I don't know anything about my dad, or his side of the family. Don't even know what his parents were called. Don't know if he had siblings. I know absolutely nothing. And I remember when he passed, speaking to my brother. My mum has two children from her first marriage, who are my brother and sister now. I'm very, very close to now. And I remember my brother saying to me, "Let sleeping dogs lie." You know, if he didn't want to tell you. And sometimes very rarely, but occasionally I do sort of think, I wonder what happened there.
Mm,
You know, I wonder, why. Just, yeah, like half my life is missing in a way,
mm,
if that makes sense. And even on my mum's side, I don't know a huge amount, but I have my immediate family, like my brother and sister and their children, I'm very close to. So I kind of, I don't look back, I don't have regrets. I've learnt that quite quickly that there's just, there's no point because, you can't live with one foot in the past. What I have got is a really close relationship with my nephews and niece.
mhm.
Or, the boys, most of them are married, so with their wives as well. I have really open conversations with them and they know that they can pretty much talk to me about anything. We have really open conversations, which I love. I love being an auntie. Absolutely love it.
You must be
Yeah.
so proud of you.
Yeah, I do get called a cool aunt occasionally. In fact, my eldest nephew's getting married soon, and I met his wife for the first time earlier this year. And I think one of the first things she said to me is that, "Ah, you're the cool aunt." And I was like, "Yes."
Lucky they are to have you in their life and to be blessed with what you bring, not just to them, but to everyone else. That's such a gift for them.
Yeah, I think honesty is the best philosophy. I know it's cliched, but I don't hide anything from my past. If they want to ask questions, I'll answer. I've got nothing to hide. I'm not ashamed about anything that's happened in my past. I'm very open about today. I think, I share pretty much a lot of what I do online, so they see it. I talk about it, with my family. I don't go into a huge amount of detail, but, it's all there in black and white, so it's.
Were you out to your family?
No, I've had this conversation. I came out quite late, and I think the reason being is thought about this. I had dalliances, dalliances. It's become my word at the moment. I keep using it. I had dalliances when I was in my 20s and then once a bit later. But I think because I spent my entire life dealing with the trauma and abuse that I suffered as a child. My focus has always been on that.
Mm.
And it's never been thinking about anything else, if that makes sense. So I've never really thought about the way I identify. I've always just thought about the pain and suffering I've carried. And I have health issues as a consequence of my childhood. So I got diagnosed with fibromyalgia about 8, 9 years ago, which is quite often associated with childhood trauma, chronic pain. I suffer with tremors, which can be quite severe at times, which I manage. I have complex PTSD. So, I've learned through counseling and healing and a lot of talking, what my triggers are, what spaces to be in, when to remove myself from situations because it's just not healthy. I suffer with hypertension. So, and these are all kind of related in some ways to my childhood. So there's, there's other stuff as well, which is related to my childhood as well. So, for me, I've had I've had to spend so much time focusing on that the rest of my life has just kind of plodded along and I've not really focused on it. And like I said, it was my mid kind of 40s when my mum passed away. I think it was 2015 that I had that release. And then it took me a long, long time to kind of overcome some of the things that I went through. And it's only really, I think, since I hit my 50s that I've been able to focus on the rest of my life. So I always said that I was an ally of the community because I didn't really realize that even though I'd had relationships in the past, that that's how I did. Because it was of no concept to me. And even now, I think I hate labels.
Mm.
I think that's one of the things that it is that I can't stand it because I was always labeled as a child. You're stupid, you're worthless, you're nothing. You're the devil's child, you're this, you're that, just constantly being told, given a name, given a title that I just don't want to be that anymore. Like my whole work career, I've never cared what my job title is. Some people get really hung up about their job title. I just don't care, and I've never cared about, job titles. I just it's the doing that matters, doesn't it? Doesn't really matter what title you're given, as long as you can do the job. That's, to me, that's how I view it. And I think that's the same now, is that, the minute we start putting people into boxes and pigeonholing them, we lose a bit of them, because we're removing a tiny bit of this or a little bit of that, because we're like, no, you fit here and this is who you are. I'm not like that. I've been quite fluid my entire life. I've drifted off, and I've gone through so many different phases in my life as well. Like from my teens, when, I was just like, just, just completely smothered in trauma and abuse, to, just being completely in the wrong company throughout my late teens, early 20s. Then I went through this massive kind of 60s psychedelic crazy era. Then I went through a whole hip hop, so it's like my whole life has been just gone through different phases. I've never stayed in one place.
Reinventing yourself.
Just go with the flow, whatever I fancy. It's like I wake up and I'm like, oh, what do I who do I fancy being today? It's even
You
when you
like,
go, sorry, go on.
what are you like when someone flirts with you?
I don't usually realise. I'm completely oblivious to it. I have no idea whatsoever.
Really?
Yeah, no idea whatsoever.
What are you like at flirting?
I don't think I do.
It really surprises me.
Really?
Yeah, because you have such warmth and charisma. Like to me, you are someone who is so engaged with the world, and you are stunning, and you have a presence. And so people must flirt with you all the time.
I'm thinking of Neil, because I'm always saying that people are stupid and I can't stand people. So maybe that's why they don't flirt with me and I don't flirt back. I've found a word recently, which is a new word that they've come out with for an introvert and extrovert. Oh, it's completely gone. I can't remember what it is, but do you
When you're
know it?
both, is it ambivert?
It might be something like that. I can't remember it. Yeah. So like, I do like being with people, like one on one. I love it. I absolutely love being one on one with people. But when it gets to groups and crowds, I start to like, okay, I can't take this anymore after a while. And it's like on Friday, I had to just run away at the end, because I was like, no, I can't do this anymore. I'm not great. So I think sometimes if someone is, I mean, I have no idea. I love being on my own. I think the problem is that I just love being on my own.
When did you last go on a date?
God, probably been years. Probably been years. I just have no interest in it at all. I think I feel so safe on my own.
Hmm.
I've just been hurt so many times. I've had so many dysfunctional, abusive relationships, partly because of my past. I think it'd probably be different now. I just have no interest in it. You know, I, I've always said that if I met someone, because friends often say to me, "Oh, it'd be really lovely if you met someone." And I'm like, if I met someone, I wouldn't say no. So I'm not saying no,
Good.
but I'm not actively looking, and I don't think that way, if that makes sense. I'm incredibly lucky, incredibly privileged that, because I was born in London, I live in London. My sister, my brother, their families all live in London. I've got a couple of friends. I've got two friends. My two friends live in London. I've got quite a big, my family's expanding. And I'm really close to them. I love spending time with my nephews and their wives. I've always got somewhere I can be if I want to be in company and be with someone. So I never have to be alone if I don't want to be. So I know a lot of people come to London or move to a place and they don't have family or friends, and they might feel the need for a relationship. I don't feel that need anymore. I'm quite
Don't get me
content.
wrong, I didn't come on today to turn this into like, I'm going to find Saba a partner, because I've never really thought about it. I guess I just feel like you have such an interesting story, and particularly at this, on the brink of 55, feeling like you have claimed yourself and that things are different and you won't tolerate any kind of shit from anyone. You do so much for everyone else. And I really don't believe that anyone is incomplete out of a relationship. And I don't believe that
Mm,
it's the answer to anything. But I also think there will be people who want to show you love in the way that you show love to others. And so I'm glad that it's not a no. I'm glad that you're not saying, oh, if someone
yeah.
approached me, I would say no. I'm wondering, what it would be, what would it take for you to say yes? If someone just said, you know what, I'd love to go on a date with Saba, what would be the magic words that would make you say yes?
Oh, to just be really cool. And I don't mean cool as in like, be cool, man. Just to be yourself. You know, I do like intelligence. Not necessarily, well, intelligence, common sense is, same thing, isn't it, really, to a degree? Well, actually, maybe it's not. Yeah, I love having conversations. I love speaking, but I don't like innate conversations. Like I'd hate small talk. Do not do small talk with me. I can't do small talk. I literally will just walk away. I don't answer small talk. It's just, I don't know what it is. It's just so boring. You have to You've got to do something to excite me with your language. So I love words. I absolutely love writing. So yeah, maybe kind of, yeah.
Turn up with a love poem.
I don't know. That might be a little bit too much.
Oh yeah, be cool.
Turn up with an alternative love poem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe a spoken word.
A little performance.
Yeah. Perform for me. No, that's terrible.
Yes. Perform for me. Well, that's the thing, because people have to earn it. You are not someone who deserves minimal effort.
Damn right. No.
No.
I don't really think about it. I mean, like I said, I'm so happy in my own company
Mm.
that I'm really, this sounds crazy, but there are times when I can just be sat, literally as I'm doing now, staring out the window, and half an hour can go by. That's
Yeah.
how comfortable I am with myself. I can just drift off away with the fairies. So to kind of grab my attention, you've just got to be slightly alternative, a bit different
Yeah.
to the norm. There is no norm. So you've got to find out what is your alternative.
Something that Darren and I have been talking about, because we're putting together a bit of a plan for a workshop, that the working title at the moment is Let's Talk About Sex. Who knows what it might change to? Because I've had so many of these conversations with people who I see as out there changing the world, doing incredible things, like doing remarkable work. And what I've noticed is often if I say to them, like, oh, how's your love life? How's your sex life? They go, oh yeah, non-existent. Haven't got time for that. Not interested. Not even looking. And I think, oh, interesting. There are these people who are giving so much to the community and for the community. And yet often there's a space, and it doesn't mean it has to be filled, but I'm really curious that, we can talk about the big stuff. We can talk about conversion practices. We can talk about, transphobia. We can talk about the emerging wave of awfulness in the world. But sometimes we're just not talking about again, maybe it's the small human things like, do you get served tea or coffee in the meeting? It's like, and when was the last time someone flirted with you? It's like, we can do the big stuff, but I wonder if that's coming at the cost of the little human moment.
I mean, I definitely feel loved. So I'm not missing being loved. I recently had to have a procedure done and I had to be picked up from the hospital. They wouldn't let me leave unless someone was physically there to pick me up. And I remember my brother and sister sort of both kind of bickering over who was going to come get me. And I remember saying to a friend of mine, this is great. What a great place to be in when your sister and brother say, no, I'm going to get you, no, I'm going to get you. Ended up getting a neighbour to pick me up because it was just so much easier. And, I get, like I've got random packages in the post from a friend of mine. Eva occasionally will send me random things in the post. And, so I definitely feel loved and appreciated from people. So that's not missing. So I know that I have that. I guess, yeah, the companionship of when something happens, there are times when, something exciting happens. Like I've been invited to a meeting in a couple of weeks, which is actually really exciting with an MP. And it's like, normally you would tell your partner, wouldn't you? So it's things like that. It's like, I suppose that's where the companionship is missing. But I just just tell someone else. I've got so used to it. So yeah, when things like that happen, I normally will tell a friend rather than a partner.
Yeah. And you're
So
coming from a place of such, strength and independence. You have such solid foundations that you're standing on. It's kind of like anything else is a bonus.
Yeah.
You can be on your own. You love your own company. I know exactly the say. I can be on my own. I don't miss people when I'm on my own. I'm not craving being out in a group of 50 friends at Mighty Hoopla. Can't think of anything worse. So yeah, I'm not, this isn't like, let's set Saba up. Equally, if anyone's listening and they want to do a bit of performance alternative poetry, we're not going to
Yeah.
say no.
Yeah. Just call me. No, don't call me.
No, don't call it. No, come
No,
through
no.
me.
Slip into my DMs. Yeah, go through Dr. Paul.
I'll filter
Go
it.
through my doctor.
What, when you think about the future, like what wish do you have for yourself? I know that you're probably going to make a big wish for the community. You don't have to do that. What do you wish for yourself?
What do I wish for myself? Gosh, this is quite difficult because what do I wish for myself? Oh, this is difficult because I'm not. Yeah. What do I wish for myself? My goodness. I suppose to have you're not going to like my answer because I was going to say to have the strength, will, and courage to carry on doing what I'm doing, but then that's not for me. That's because I'm doing it for the community. Okay, I know. I hope that I always stay true to myself and I hope I always stay grounded. One of the reasons why I'm really comfortable talking about my past is because I've never forgotten my roots and that helps me stay true to myself. So I would like to, wow. I can normally answer questions straight away or wing it. I can't even wing this one.
And I feel like that's the second time I've asked you a question that was hard to answer, or like, what do you want to talk about as an example? And you were like, oh, no one's ever asked me that. And then what do
Yeah.
you wish for yourself? And I just think it's interesting that there's something there about your utter lack of putting yourself first into that conversation. Like, it's so easy for you to put everyone else first and to talk about the community. And then when it comes to you, maybe there's just a bit of, I don't know, a bit of hesitation because it hasn't been common for you to be asked
Yeah.
those questions because you're the one asking the questions. You're out there asking people, how can we make things better? How can we change things? You're
Mm,
walking into the room and going, I know what needs to be done.
yeah, I guess I would like, yeah, geez, I'd no idea. Don't know. Gosh, I would always like to be a cat mother for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I'd like to be surrounded by animals.
Yeah.
I like animals. I prefer animals to humans. It's a well-known fact. I'm not hiding it. Yeah, I think I would like to be healthier. My health has really taken a knocking and a battering since last summer. Working with consultants and my have an incredible GP, and things are slowly improving, which is partly why I've let go of quite a few things so that I can just focus on one or two things and not spread myself thin. So I think have a bit more time so that I can really relish in being an auntie with my great niece and my great nephews, who I don't see enough of. So that's one of the things I do want to do is I want to spend more time with my friends. I do believe it or not have friends that are not in the community scene. And I miss not seeing them because I'm normally burnt out and exhausted. I'm not very good with evenings because to manage my fibro, I stick to quite a strict schedule. So I tend not to do anything in the evenings and come the weekend sometimes. I've had a busy week. Even if I'm mentally exhausted, it means that physically I'm exhausted too. So I definitely want to spend more time with like loved ones. So that's what I'd like. I'd like to spend more time with the people that I genuinely love and care about. I don't know why I had to say genuinely.
Spend less time with the people you fake love and care about.
Yeah, spend less time with the people I fake it with, fake it to make it. Gosh.
What's it been like having space to talk about you?
I didn't realize how difficult it would be to answer some of those questions. Like I said, I don't know if you've heard the saying, you can't con a conner. I don't know if you've heard that.
Not
Okay.
really.
So I can't, like you can't con a con man, basically.
Yeah.
So because of like things in my past that I haven't talked about, where I can be quite kind of conniving. I can get my way quite often in meetings, in a business setting.
Yeah.
I'm very good at talking, but quite clearly you've proved that with certain questions, I just have stumbled, which is really interesting. It's kind of really made me think about it. Yeah, I suppose it's getting really personal, isn't it? And you're right. I think it's probably because day to day, I don't have anyone asking me personal questions, so I'm just not used to it.
The stuff you talked about was incredibly personal. I feel like I asked you really boring questions like, what do you want to talk about? And what do you wish for yourself? Like, to me, those are really, I would see those as almost like small talk. So you can do the big talk. Like you told me a lot of stuff that I didn't know about you that is very personal. And yet those smaller questions that are maybe more, I don't know, casual, more throwaway.
Mm,
They're the ones that felt like, oh, I don't know, I'm going to have to think about that. And equally, when you gave yourself space to think, yeah, you could say, yeah, I want to spend more time with my loved ones. I want more animals.
mm,
It's not like there was nothing there. It's just that it's not the knee jerk reaction to
yeah,
the big questions of, what are you doing with your life and how are you
yeah.
changing the world? Those feel quite easy.
It probably goes back to what I said earlier, that I just don't like small talk. Don't ask me
Yeah.
small talk questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Which is a
it's like
good
what
lesson
I
for
think
me.
the question that I hate the most, and I really hate this question, is when people say, "How are you feeling?"
Mm.
Because I can't answer that question, because if I was to give a really honest answer, it would take too long. But also, I don't really want to talk about how I'm feeling because I talk about it all the time with my family, with my sister. I speak to my sister sort of every other day, and quite often it is about how I'm feeling. And to me, that's also a really personal question. So I think sometimes that's why I don't like small talk. It's like, ask me big questions.
Think so. I'm going to offer something and you can tell me if it's right or wrong, but it's just come to me as you said that. I think you're really good with personal stuff and I think you're very protective of private stuff.
Mm, yes.
And that there's a difference. Like you can talk about the personal stuff because it's your story. You're in control of it. You're able
Mm.
to share what you want to share. But when it comes to questions about your private life, which everyone is entitled to, you have no obligation to answer them.
Do you know what? I think you're spot on. Spot on. I think you're absolutely right. There's in therapy and sharing, they say, don't they? It's like don't give everything away, keep something back. And there are things about my life which I just keep to myself. I mean, like you said, I am an open book. There is absolutely everything and anything that, you know, I will share about. I could share about how I'm feeling, but it's on a day to day. Yeah, I am actually a very private person. And there's a lot about me. People just have absolutely no idea whatsoever. They really don't know anything, and it does make me laugh sometimes because people do make assumptions
Hmm.
and people do assume quite a lot of things about me, and they have no idea. But I quite like it that way. I've actually had that my entire life. Partly, like when we started in the beginning, when you said, "What do you wear when you go to those meetings?" Because I dress a particular way, people have always judged me for that because I've been covered in tattoos for sort of more than half my life. I got my first tattoo when I was 24. So 30 years ago, people naturally make assumptions, because I used to have a shaved head all the time. People just, think in a certain way. So I've always had people think X, Y, and Z about me, but I have no idea whatsoever. People have no concept of my background, what my family background is, what I come from. And I'm glad, I've had it a lot, I get judged. I have been judged a lot, but I don't mind because it's quite nice to actually keep some stuff private.
I think in this time that we're living in where, oversharing becomes currency and, spilling your guts is seen as work rather than, something really personal and intimate. I think having a boundary around your privacy is so important.
Mm.
It's fine to talk about whatever you want to talk about and know that there are things that are private and it's nobody else's business.
I I always like when people say, "Can I ask you a question?" My response is always absolutely, but I might not want to answer, or I might choose to say no. Which is my prerogative. And they always kind of look at you a bit funny, but you can ask me absolutely anything. I really don't mind. Whether I choose to respond, it is my decision. And I think that word choice is something that I've learned through therapy is that everyone has a choice. We choose to act, behave, or do in a particular way.
Mm.
I have a choice, and I've chosen to do this. Nobody's made me. That's my, decision. And if you don't like my response, that's not about me, it's about you.
Mm.
And not everyone can handle it. Not everyone likes that as a response because people feel that, you owe them. But yeah, no, I, I, I mean, I've been through recovery, and I think in the early years of recovery, I heard this incredible talk. In fact, I've got it on a cassette. I've got it on a cassette about boundaries, and it's one of the best. This is like in my early 20s, one of the best talks I've ever heard, where this guy was talking about boundaries, and he was talking about, like his choice and what he could and couldn't say and do. And he was talking about, and then he started talking about respect. And one of the things he said was that I don't, expect you to respect me. I demand you respect me. And that's kind of always stuck with me, is that I don't expect you to respect me, I demand you respect me. And if you can't, then, this isn't gonna work. But that's once you've recognized and acknowledged your self-worth and recognized your own worth. I have no idea where I've gone. I've completely gone off on a tangent.
It's a wonderful tangent. And it just, for me, it feels like such a perfect place for us to have reached from, the big picture stuff about all the activism you're doing in the world and the experiences that you've had that have shaped how you show up in those spaces. And then what it's like when you cross that boundary of the personal into the private, and just how you protect that. And I'm so glad that you protect that, because you are important and the work you're doing is important. And we need more of it, but it doesn't have to be more of you. You don't have to give everything,
Mhm.
because there are others, myself included, who can give to you in return for what you give to everyone. One of the things that I've asked everyone that I've spoken to on the podcast in terms of, my book is Still Here, Still Queer, Now What? So if you were to finish the sentence, I'm still here, I'm still queer, and how would you finish it?
I'm still queer, I'm still here, and I'm not going anywhere.
Good. I'm so grateful to know you. I'm so grateful to be benefiting from all the work that you're doing. I'm so grateful to see what difference you make in the world just through your presence and also through your work. And when I go back to where we began with listening to all the stuff you were saying in the beginning and thinking, oh, I've got so many questions, I think I've had maybe 2% of them answered. And I love that, because I just want more. There's so many things I think we can talk about. And I think it's like a long overdue conversation today, from just catching moments with you in different places and events, just to have had an hour of time to listen. I'm so grateful for that. So thank you. I appreciate that this is a bit unusual to talk about some of those things. And I don't take it for granted. I think it's such a privilege to be able to hear people's stories. So thank you for sharing yours, and thank you for what you do. And you've given me a reminder that there's more I could do in support of what you do. And I'm grateful for that.
Thank you, Paul. Dr. Paul Taylor-Pitt. No, I'm really grateful that you asked, and it's really nice to be asked. Like, I always feel really humbled, and just, like you said, what can people do? Well, just asking me to be a part of something, speaking up. I always think it's a real privilege to be recognised and seen. That's the most important thing. And I've loved the conversation. I didn't know what to expect. I came in completely blind. I don't know if that's the right phrase to use, but I came in with no, concept of what we were going to discuss, what we're going to talk about. But I feel completely safe around you. I'm very comfortable around you. So I knew that I was in good hands, and I was just happy to go with it. And you've been all over the place,
Because I had
which
no
is,
idea what we were going to talk about either. That's the thing. I don't prepare anything, because I think it's got to be about what you want to talk about. And so I love that it's gone so quick and we've talked about so much, and there's still so much more to say. So thank you.
and I need to get you to I need to get you to Parliament into a room with MP.
Don't know. I don't, yeah, right. We can talk about that. I think I'd be awful.
You
I'd be
suddenly
terrible.
looked like a panic. I felt panic then.
Yeah, because I think I'd be terrible. I think I'd either just show up and just be angry, or I would go completely silent. I think you are the best person in the room, not me. So thank you. Thank you for doing
Isn't
it so I don't have to.
playing a game. That's what I always say. A lot of this work is playing the game. You have to play the game.
Well, I'm glad that it's being played by someone with much more skill than me. If you did want people to get in touch or find you online, how would they do that?
You can find me on Instagram at Saba Celebrity PA. There is a long story behind that name for another day. It's just stayed and it just really amuses me. And a few people know the meaning behind it. Or on LinkedIn, I am Saba Ali FRSA. So
There's so
there
much more to talk about. I hope I can. I hope I can get you back, or if not, I hope we can just go and talk about it and just have a nice conversation anyway.
yeah, no, let's do
Thank you
it.
so.
Let's do it. Well, I need to get you back for round two at the RSA as well.
Let's do it.
Definitely.
Thank you,
Thank you
Saba.
so much. Thank you.